Alon, what's the biggest gambling debt you ever had?
Oh, put me on the spot.
Well, you're
Biggest
a
debt.
gambler, and I figured this is an
Yeah.
appropriate question for what's going on lately.
Luckily, I've never really been in gambling debt. I can tell you the most I've lost, like in a
Yeah.
night. About 8 or 9 grand.
Damn. What were you playing?
Craps.
And you were just at the table, and you were just feeling yourself, and
Yeah. Feeling myself is a good way of putting it. I didn't make that mistake again. Let's just put it that way.
damn, 8 or 9 grand. Wow. Well, it's not 4.5 million.
No, no, no. And I definitely noticed it immediately after. I went, "What the hell did I just do?"
Damn. Yeah. That's quite a debt. But yeah, we will get into a lot of stuff today because you're the perfect person to ask about this stuff since you gamble and you live in Vegas. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Just Your Opinion, man. Stephen Langford is out. He's in Scottsdale, I believe, for Giant Spring Training. So he'll be back with
Ooh.
us. I think on Wednesday we'll do like a big old baseball preview show and get ready for Giant season, whatever the A season will be. We'll talk about baseball and the upcoming 2024 season on Wednesday, I believe. But Alon's here. Good to have Alon with us from Las Vegas. How many brackets you got going, Alon?
I'm not a bracket guy.
You're not a
So
bracket guy. Okay.
no, I've never really in high school was probably the last time I filled out brackets. Like I was super into it. I just like watching the games because I don't know. I think once it expanded to 72 teams or whatever it was, I was like, "Oh, to hell with this. I don't care anymore."
Yeah, it's a lot.
And if I do fill one out, like I'll fill one out with my brother or something. We'll do like a combined one, but I don't even think about it.
Not fair enough. I'm not really a big college basketball guy to begin with, but now that I don't work for the NFL Network anymore, I'm allowed to fill out a bracket. Apparently,
Oh.
there was a rule. Yeah, there was a rule. See, I know the rules, Otani. When it comes to gambling, the NFL doesn't fuck around, even though they're all about it now. You'll watch NFL Network, and the bottom ticker has all of the betting lines for the upcoming games. So while TV is really getting into gambling, I mean, our buddy Joe Fortenbaugh has a whole new career on ESPN. It's funny to me that there's also the other side of it where, oh my God, Otani's gambling, which we'll get to. But now that I am not an NFL Network, for whatever reason, NFL employees are not allowed to fill out a March Madness bracket. I don't know why.
So real quick, I understand NFL employees, NFL Network employees not gambling on NFL games. I get
Yes,
that. Even though
not allowed also to be in a sports book during the NFL season.
I remember when you explained that to me after you had left NFL Network. You were like, when we were here for that Raider game, and you're like, amazingly, a year ago,
Uh
I
huh.
wouldn't be allowed to be in this room, and I'm like, are
Yep.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
So I get that. I get the NFL Network, NFL game part of it, but a March Madness bracket is like the most. It's not even gambling. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, could there be a pool attached to it? Of course there could be, but it's not like you're filling out a bracket so you have something to follow along with. That's all it is.
I thought it was ridiculous. For whatever reason, yeah. Apparently, they view that as a big gambling thing. And big money is usually attached to it. I am in a few since I've joined KMBR. I've done brackets, and I mean, I don't watch college basketball, so I'm just having fun filling out, the sophomoric names of colleges like
Longwood.
Longwood and Morehead State. Definitely pick both those teams. Um, but yeah, for whatever reason, the NFL is not on the idea of people filling out March Madness bracket. If you are an employee, I don't know what the rule is with players. I'm sure players could do that shit. Um, so yeah, I did not participate for the last 3 years. There wasn't really much March Madness to begin with because we didn't have a bracket or we didn't have a tourney in 2020, obviously. And yeah, so the last few years I've been filling out a bracket, and I've been doing okay this year. A few upsets here or there. I mean, shit, Oakland, not here, Oakland,
Yeah.
but Oakland and Pittsburgh beating Kentucky. That was huge. Just some really fun games. I mean, how much have you been betting on the games though, Alon?
No,
Not
I
really.
actually haven't. bet on anything probably since last NFL season.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Just because
You weren't frisky. You wanted to go in on the NHL All-Star game?
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. I did. Gosh, the NHL. As a Sharks fan, the NHL's been a very hard watch this season.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm in a Sharks pool. Speaking of gambling, I'm in a Sharks pool where
to see how many wins they get.
well, that plus we pick who gets the goal. Like we have a player draft every day when there's a game at the KNBR league, and we pick who we think is going to score the first Sharks goal of the game. And this is I've only been in the Sharks pool for God, was it 3 seasons now, and or maybe two actually, maybe three. No, two, definitely two. We've had the most rollovers where nobody scored at all, so the money just carries over to the next game because the Sharks team is abysmal.
That's yeah. You know what? In a way, that's good because whoever the winner is going to get a real nice hefty prize.
Yeah.
It'd be like when we used to do the Warriors trivia over at 95.7 The Game. And I remember because usually it would be like Nash, who was one of the other producers there, or someone else filling them out, maybe Lucas or something like that. But I would do it a couple times a week, or about a couple times a week. And I remember Steinmetz being like, "We can't run these quizzes. This is like the SAT of basketball, like Warriors trivia." And I'm like, "Oh, come on! Some of these should be easy. Like the answers are like Skeetishvili or like guys, Zarko Charbarkaba is like always one of my answers.
Great name too. No, but like if you're gonna get like I always thought for radio prizes, if there's gonna be trivia attached to it, it's gotta be difficult. It can't just be like, you know, like a KNBR, we do like the caller 10 thing, which I like, because then automatically doesn't mean just because you called in you automatically get the prize. At the game, I remember initially I would do trivia questions, and our program director then was like, "These trivia questions are too hard. Just make it very generic." And so one day he's like, "The trivia question is going to be, who's number 30 on the Warriors?" I was like, are you fucking kidding me? That's so stupid. It's got to be difficult. If you're going to win a prize, there should be some difficulty to gain the prize. So
And-
I always loved your questions. Nash had good questions. Alexander Scott is encyclopedia when it comes to Warriors history, so he came up with great questions. No, it should be difficult.
Yeah, it should number 30 on the Warriors, and it should.
Let me think about it.
It should never be one where you can quickly type in on your phone, "Hey, who's number 30 on the Warriors?" while you're on the air. Because if it's a real easy question like that, you'd be like, 30. Well, it's not, and then boom, oh, it's Steph Curry.
Yeah, but like if you're,
you can't type that in either. You got to know that.
That's even for the most casual of casual fans to know that shit. Like that's ridiculous. And I honestly, I don't like casual fans winning prizes. It should be the diehards.
Oh,
yeah, I like that for a hot take.
Or the people who work at the station. Oh,
God forbid. God forbid.
God forbid.
I remember I suggested that one time, and God, that was a big problem. But yeah, dude, March Madness has been fun. So have you been watching the games? You haven't been gambling at all, but you've been paying attention.
I've been watching the games, and obviously, as an Alabama fan, I'll be watching today pretty closely. But
Grand Canyon upsetting St. Mary's.
Yeah, and I love that.
Or Randy
game.
Bennett.
That was a. Did you watch that game, Derek?
I did, and it
was a grinder, man. Especially the first half. It was awesome basketball to watch. I really liked it, but St. Mary's just kind of fell apart in the last 7-8 minutes of that game. They just couldn't sustain any offense. I felt bad for them because I wanted to see them advance.
Yeah, I mean, on the Tolbert and Cope show, Tom Tolbert's very close to Randy Bennett, and he's come on the last few weeks to talk about the tourney and everything, and that's unfortunate. We were hoping that St. Mary's was to go on a little run here, but sadly they get knocked out in the first round by Grand Canyon. But no, the tourney's been fun. I watched who played last night that went double overtime.
Creighton and Oregon.
Yeah, Creighton and Oregon was a great game.
Phenomenal game.
Who did Oakland play yesterday that they lost to?
Oakland played. Yeah, who did they play?
That game went overtime as well.
In the same building.
Yes, in Pittsburgh. NC State.
NC State, yes. Yeah. NC State, 79-73. But that St. Mary's game, it was it was hard to watch towards the end because it was like, man, this is the best St. Mary's team that I can remember. Maybe since I was like in high school or something like that, right? Over the past 10 years, they won their conference. They played well against Gonzaga this year. Like they did really well. This was probably like their best shot of
Yeah.
advancing far. And it seemed like the contrast of styles between them and GCU was kind of, I don't want to say tailor made for St. Mary's, but it was so opposite that it was like if they're going to be able to bog anybody down, this would be the kind of team that they can because Grand Canyon doesn't really have a true big man, and they just weren't able to get it done for whatever reason. And pace of play might be the biggest part of that. I mean, it could just be that hey, you don't score enough points, so the margins are so thin. It's kind of like what we used to say with up until this past season with Michigan winning the national championship in college football, but the way Jim Harbaugh's teams have historically played, the margins are so small. You have to play perfect.
Yeah. No, I mean it was interesting because I know that St. Mary's played well against Gonzaga this year, as you just said, and Gonzaga's, they didn't win the conference, but they're playing well now in the tourney. They beat who they beat yesterday? Kansas.
I Kansas, yeah. I didn't
Yeah, so
watch. I
so
haven't
things
seen
so so
Gonzaga.
th- things have flipped. And yeah, St. Mary's for the great season they had is going home early, which is sad. But the tourney is always fun to watch.
It
It's
is.
fun games. It's not the best basketball in the world. A lot of low scoring games. Watched Tennessee and Texas yesterday. Um, yeah, I mean, good game. It was close, but low scoring. And the day before or 2 days before, Texas barely beat. I forget who they beat. Maybe Colorado State, but that was a hard watch. So yeah, I've been paying attention. Marquette just beat Colorado, so we'll keep you updated with all of the scores and the games and whatnot. But the biggest story, I mean, this is actually ironic that this story coincides with the biggest sports gambling time of the year. Would you say that March Madness is the biggest gambling time of the year when it comes to sports?
It's not even close.
Yeah,
It's
everybody
got
goes to
it's
Vegas.
yeah, everybody goes to Vegas. Like people who are, and it's so funny because Las Vegas doesn't host any games, but every year people come here just to watch the games, and I don't blame them. It's a great environment to watch the games at. But yeah, it's a huge gambling time.
I wouldn't be surprised if eventually the tourney does come to Las Vegas.
Uh, so I wouldn't be surprised either. It would be even more of a madhouse, which would be
Oh
kind of
God, yeah,
crazy. But Las Vegas, in one way, does make a lot of sense on the west, kind of closer to the West Coast. The amount of arenas that we have here, theoretically you could have an entire region played in one city, which would be kind of interesting. You could have T-Mobile Arena host games, the MGM Grand can host games, Michelob Ultra Arena where the Las Vegas Aces can host games. So I mean, you could have a bunch of places that could host games, so it would work really well. But I don't. Here's the thing: college basketball really likes putting the NCAA likes putting their tournament games in areas like Spokane, Washington,
yeah.
or smaller kind of Pittsburgh, which isn't really there's no NBA team there, right? And it's not a massive metropolitan area.
But what about when they get to like the Final Four or the actual champion? Like they go to bigger locations.
They do. No, they do. And like we've seen them go to Jerry World, which
Yeah,
is I always think is insanity. Because I wonder what it would be like to sit up in that fifth, sixth deck or whatever they have up there. And at that point you're just watching the Jumbotron that they
yeah,
have there.
exactly.
But yeah, no, they do. So Las Vegas would be interesting. I kind of like the way it is. I mean, part of me think it would be really cool if it came here, but I just like how it is right now.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, from the Super Bowl and from more sporting events in Las Vegas, the inevitable is that there'll be more sports going on in Vegas, but it just the irony of it because it's the biggest sports gambling time of the year, and we have a huge gambling scandal, I guess, with the
Big problem.
the big problem, the big scandal, whatever you want to call it, and it involves the biggest name in baseball. So, Wednesday, a report came out that Shohei Ohtani's longtime interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, was fired from the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's been accused by Ohtani's attorneys of engaging in massive theft of Ohtani's funds to place bets with an illegal bookie. At first, when I saw this like that story break, I was like, wow, that's spicy in itself. That's insane. Like, interpreter stealing your money. That's crazy. So then the story goes on. ESPN was originally going to run a story that Ohtani transferred $4.5 million himself on behalf of Ipe. Ipe, in a statement to ESPN, says Ohtani never bet. He felt bad for Ipe and wanted to pay off his debt to the bookie himself. Sorry, I'm just catching up on my notes here. Ipe then changed his story that Ohtani had zero knowledge of his debt or gambling habits. While the Dodgers were in South Korea, Mizuhara reportedly addressed the Dodgers locker room, admitting to a gambling problem. ESPN reporter Tishan Thompson, or Tisha Thompson, claims Dodgers players responded by saying, okay, so what? Then Dodgers president Stan Castor, I believe, or Caston, I can't read my own handwriting, says that something along the lines of, oh, well, Ohtani just paid off the debt, so no harm, no foul. So basically what happened was they're saying that Ipe stole the money from Ohtani's funds when the story before that was Ohtani was paying it off to help out his longtime friend. So now, as of Sunday, this happened on Friday, Major League Baseball has filed an investigation against Ohtani. So, Alon, your thoughts on this crazy, spicy story that's rock sports?
This is classic baseball, classic MLB. Anytime it seems that the shine is about to go onto their sport or something, they just, whether it's them, whether it's totally by accident, whether it's something like this, just seems to happen. In one way, it is publicity, so more eyes are going to be on baseball, but it's not the kind of publicity they want. And I look at this and I just shake my head. I'm like, why do things? This will be the second one's more funny, right? So this will be the second big, oh my gosh, that baseball has had this year in this regular season. Well, technically the regular season has started with the Dodgers.
By the way, I didn't even know that. So while this story's going on,
yeah.
The Dodgers and Padres, I thought it was just an exhibition 2-gamer. These games count?
Yeah, it's almost like when you remember when Yoenis Cespedes made his debut for the A's,
yes,
and they went and played in Japan.
But I do remember that.
That was maybe like 5 days. Maybe I don't remember correctly, but I want to say that was like a week, maybe 5 days before the regular season started. This is like 2 whole weeks before regular season baseball starts. So yeah, the game counts.
Well, why can't we have this simultaneously while the regular season's going on for every other team? And I know the travel would suck. That's probably why they need to rest a full week beforehand. But I just hate the idea of a week before everybody else is playing, we're actually getting meaningful baseball games played.
Yeah, did anybody wake up to watch that? I did.
I mean, diehard baseball fans. Adam Copeland's crazy ass woke up at 3 a.m. to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I watched some of the replay and I was like, yeah, I'm cool off this. This is still weird. I'm still like in spring training mode. But what I was going to say was this is the second big thing that baseball's had kind of blow up in their face, and the regular season for all most intents and purposes hasn't started yet. First, it's the Fanatics jersey, big mess up, basically. The see-throughs, the wet t-shirt contest jerseys and pants. Thanks Nike, thanks Fanatics. And then now you have this gambling scandal. But my initial thoughts were I tend to want to believe Shohei Ohtani. So whatever he says, I'm going to kind of go with that until.
But he hasn't said much.
He hasn't said much. Yeah. So
to be honest,
according to what the attorney for Ipe Mizuhara says, about Shohei Ohtani, I would tend to agree with. The problem is the changing of story. That's never a good thing when the story changes. And the other problem is it's like, do we really need an investigation? I know it's bad. I know it could be. Let's not. He's the most famous player. He's so talented. He's won a couple of MVPs in the last 3 years. Like, I don't want to get into this. I just want to watch the game and not think about that. He's not cheating. He's not on steroids or anything like that. Like, I draw the line right there. and I hope it's not bad, and I just want it to go away. So in a way, I'm just like, please don't ruin the season. I don't want to see the season marred by something like this.
But you're also saying that, let's be honest, as a sneaky Dodger fan.
A little bit, and more as a Shohei Ohtani fan, but
No, but I remember watching the World Series with you when the Red Sox and
I was
Dodgers were in it.
hyped. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
was
were.
hyped, and I don't know if that's more me liking the Dodgers or hating Boston. It could be one or the other. Sorry, Boston, just not a Boston guy.
Fair enough.
I will say this: there are people out there who unfortunately, and so I was reading the LA Times this morning,
Yeah.
and some of their
Still shaking?
I no, I was reading their, where I was going to say fans, where readers write in on their comments on this stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So when the story broke, and then readers wrote in for the Sunday edition, like their comments on it, and there were a few people who were like, "Wow, we really know how to pick them: Julio Urias, Trevor Bauer, now Shohei Ohtani." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa,
No.
whoa, whoa! Let's not
No.
even go there, guys. Like that is
It's not the
so
same thing
it
whatsoever.
it is not the same thing." So I don't want to see something like this mar Otani's reputation. That being said, $4.5 million. So whether he paid off his friend slash interpreter's debt, and apparently, they're very close. They're like best friends.
Yeah, they've known
So
each other for 13 years.
if he did that, then wow, what a good friend. If if in fact he was placing bets, he needs to stop betting because he's got a major problem. And
You're talking about Ipe or Shohei?
Shohei Ohtani. And
Yeah, that's the part where I think people are like, "What's going on here?"
and the big question is, was he betting on himself to win MVP? Probably not, because he wouldn't be in the whole $4.5 million. Was he
No.
betting on Angels games? I mean, those are real questions that have
Well,
to
we
be
don't even
answered.
know. We don't even know. What was said was he was not betting on baseball.
Baseball, yeah.
He was betting on, what was it? Football and college football, and just not baseball related.
But that's what the
So
investigation will have to turn up if in fact that
yes,
is true.
I mean, there's no way around it. There was going to be an investigation when you have a player of this magnitude and you have a story that like this that involves gambling. You got to investigate it. I'm with you, Alon. I want to just focus on the things on the field. I hate off the field shit, but this is too hard to ignore.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ernie too has a great point here. I wonder what Pete Rose is thinking right now with the Ohtani scandal. I actually hit up John Curley, who works on our morning show now at KMBR, and said he's gotten Pete Rose on in the past. I was like, you should hit up Pete Rose and see what he has to say. Pete did not respond. And I wonder if he's just like, I don't want to say anything until, because Pete Rose did stuff. Pete Rose
Yeah.
did bet on baseball. He bet on his own team, and that ostracized him from the game to this day. As far as Ohtani, we don't know what he's done. So everything that I read, it sounds like his buddy, his interpreter, got in deep and, uh, yeah, needed $4.5 million, and then Shohei helped him out. Now, the part that gets a little iffy here with legal trouble is in the state of California, you cannot give money to a bookie. That is
You know,
illegal.
it's illegal.
So, hey, JD's in the chat here. What's up, JD? JD with his typical no mon. Check out JD on Just Dubs OT, or Just Dubs on the weekend. Dubs OT at post games. Anyway, that's our shameless plug.
He's the
Um,
man. JD's the man.
Super reporter. So the legal trouble that Otani may get into here is that you cannot pay a bookie in the state of California because gambling's illegal. Most of the country has opened it up now. If this was any other situation, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. But Otani, I guess, is helping out his friend, so he decides to give the money himself. Then it turns into a weird story where now Ipe is going to have to be the fall guy. He's going to have to be the one to be like, so this is what I think happened, and this is where you can question Otani's character. Is uh, maybe the Dodgers or baseball, Rob Manfred, somebody got to Otani is like, what'd you do here? Did you pay the bookie? You can't do that. We're gonna suspend you, or you're getting in trouble. You know,
Legally.
you're gonna go to jail.
Yeah.
So they made up some crazy story where Ipe was stealing money from him, and now he has to be the fall guy, which sucks because that's that unfortunately is the dirty part of this game where they want to hold or keep Otani's integrity intact. So his buddy is going to have to take the fall here and lose his job with the Dodgers. Um, that's all I think at the moment. To speculate that Ohtani was gambling himself, I think is outrageous, and I don't think anyone can really go that far. It could happen. I mean, it could be that Ipe was the one placing the bets for Ohtani, and then Ohtani had to cover his bets. There also might be a problem with, Ohtani's been here for a long time, but maybe I don't know what the laws are overseas compared to what they are in California. Maybe he wasn't aware of this stuff, but ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So the part that Otani is going to be in trouble here is, did he in fact pay this bookie $4.5 million? If he did, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think he's just helping out a buddy. But yeah, he's going to have to face some kind of suspension or fine, and then we move on. I don't really think his character needs to be put into play here, but there will be, the guys that are like, shit. So, did you hang your friend? Like, did you try to get your friend to be the scapegoat here, and now he lost his job? Like, in some, you can think of it as Ohtani being like, "Man, you really fucked me with this $4.5 million debt, and now I'm trying to pay it for you. So
Yeah.
now, I'll pay off your debt, but your owed to me now is you don't have a job anymore. I can't be associated with you." You can look at it as that way, or you can look at it as Ohtani trying to save his ass, fucked his friend over.
I actually like what you put forward regarding Major League Baseball catching wind of it and saying, all right, well, this is the best damage control plan that we have right now. I actually think that's a scenario that's pretty realistic for the world that we live in, where the interpreter does turn into the fall guy. Now, if that is true, there's going to be some type of ramification for Otani no matter what, probably in the form of some type of suspension. Shohei Otani's not going to jail, but
No,
there is going to be some type of repercussion, not just for him, but there will probably be some type of weird oversight placed on the Dodgers as an organization as well, and baseball will just try to go on with business as usual. But man, $4.5 million, that makes the 8 grand that I probably lost, and that wasn't just one night, but a number of the course of like a month or two seem like pennies, man. Like, give me a break. It's just that is so much money. And the one idea of, well, his buddy stole from him and he didn't really realize it. That would be a long time to steal $50,000 here, $40,000 there over the course of years in order to make it unnoticeable. And how could you not? How could you not notice it? So it to me, it does seem very real that Shoei probably tried to pay his interpreter's debt off and went and now is looking at it and going, oh great, I guess I can't do, like, this is so far out of bounds. I can't do this not only in California, but as a Major League Baseball player, I can't be doing this either. So, I mean, one thing's for sure, he needs a new interpreter.
yeah,
The,
yeah.
the second thing, he probably going to want to vet the guy to make sure there's no underlying issues with gambling or anything like that. Maybe he'll hire like a chain smoking interpreter this time, like someone whose vice is a little different than gambling.
Just get
Who
like a
knows?
big Dodger fan that will learn, you know,
A big Japanese Dodger fan who
yeah,
will.
just yeah, just or not even get like like Jason Bateman, who's like a diehard Dodger fan. He's like, oh, I would love to be around Otani all the time. Yeah, I'll learn Japanese in a day. Yeah, and just but here's the thing. I know a lot of people are attacking Otani's character lately, and I'm just like, yes, the part where he probably made his friend the scapegoat sucks. But if he's just helping out a friend and paid off $4.5 million, then that's a good deed to me, honestly.
Exactly.
So the only part, like at the end of the day, if it comes back that yes, Otani paid off the debt to help out his friend, then like a week suspension, I think, is all that's necessary, and a fine. Um, but anything over that, I think, is ridiculous. I don't think he did anything that wrong. Now, if it comes back that Otani's the one that's been gambling for years, then yeah, he's in huge trouble and
Yeah.
most likely will not be in baseball anymore. But we shouldn't cross that bridge until we get there. So, all in all, I hate seeing shit like this because while for the media, it's like, oh my God, what a
Yeah.
scandal. The biggest name in baseball. And baseball's not that interesting to begin with. So now we have this right before the season starts. And that's the biggest deal is that there's going to be an investigation and Otani's still going to play. So while the Dodgers are the biggest team in baseball right now with all the star power they have and all the additions they made, including Otani, this will be a black cloud over them until we know what exactly happened. So it'll be entertaining. And, but at the same time, I think there will be some people that look at this Dodger team having a huge distraction. And you don't want that right before the season starts. I mean, a lot of people question that their latest World Series win is even legitimate because of the amount of games they
COVID.
played during the
Yeah.
COVID season. So this is just something the Dodgers did not want to happen. I'm sure they're pissed about this, but I think they're really talented, and I think that whatever comes about this, unless Otani is actually gambling, then they'll be fine. It's not something you want to go into the season with, but yeah, no, I think that Otani shouldn't have a huge punishment if at the end of the day if he just gave his buddy $4.5 million.
So, and I agree with all that. And I guess the question I would have kind of at the end of this Otani road here is, does this affect people outside of Otani and Mitsuhara? So, for instance, do you think baseball is going to take this as an opportunity to then open up maybe a further league-wide kind of oversight or investigation to really crack down on any potential gambling with players? Because I could see baseball doing that, and unfortunately, they'll do it at the worst time. They'll do it during the middle of the season. It'll be the All-Star break, and all of a sudden it'll be like 4 more players caught up in a gambling scandal. It's like, well, you want people to not be into the game for the game's sake. That's how you would do it. I hope they don't do that, but I'm just saying I could see a world in which Major League Baseball goes, maybe this is a big problem. We need to kind of audit every team and see what's going on here.
I don't know if they'll go that far, but maybe they will. Maybe they will investigate more. I mean, it's prevalent now that like this is the problem we get into. And I thought John Lund did a great job opening his show the other day, where he was like, "Yeah, Jeff Passan was talking about the gambling scandal on ESPN's First Take, brought to you by FanDuel." And like just the hypocrisy of it all. The line between just talking about regular sports and the purity of the game, and then the gambling aspect of all these sports is gone. Like
Yeah.
like I said earlier with NFL Network, there's gambling lines on the bottom when there are strict rules against gambling. Like ESPN shoves it down your throat. I'm glad that Joe Fortenbaugh has a career over there now, and I'm happy for him. But it's prevalent now. It's a big deal. Every podcast, every commercial has sports gambling. So, and then when you have this story go along with it, it's like, okay, well, there's, are you going to say it's bad, or like, it's kind of hypocritical to do the reporting of it and then be like, by the way, check out, today's betting lines. And it's just like, that is gone. As far as baseball, yeah, they may start cracking down on some players, like if there's stuff going on in, clubhouses and whatnot, or charters. But I think this is only a story because it was blatantly obvious. Everybody got it and they couldn't avoid it. I don't know how much gambling goes on when, Major League Baseball. Um, there's a lot of gambling going on, and you hear about NBA stories where guys are playing cards on planes and stuff, but that's perfectly fine when you're not actually betting on professional sports. It's where you're like, if Otani is gambling on, if he was gambling on Angels games, then this is a huge
Oh
scandal,
yeah.
the likes of which we haven't seen since Pete Rose. And
Yep.
I even thought like Calvin Ridley a couple years ago was huge, but in the end, it turns out he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of gray area with the rules now of just like, oh, you know, if Jameson Williams places a bet for college basketball, but he's at the Lions facility, then he's going to get suspended 6 games.
Because yes, because he placed it from a Lions facility and
The
on their
Wi-Fi
internet.
picked
With
it
the
up,
what?
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but that like, is anybody like doing exactly what Pete Rose did? No, like nothing has come close to that in my opinion, except for maybe what was it, Isaiah Rodgers, the Colts cornerback. Last year, found out that he was gambling on NFL games. I don't know if he was gambling on the Colts, but he was gambling on games. So that's the only part. Like I just think athletes are going to gamble now. When you make it accessible to the public and fans are doing it, then I think that players want a piece of the action too. It's going to be crazy one day if a coach gets caught doing it, like
Yeah.
Pete Rose was a manager of the Reds. So I just think if Ohtani was just simply helping out his friend, then I don't think it's that big of a deal. If he was the one gambling, then we got a shitstorm on our hands.
Yeah, and definitely what you don't want. So even though I love boxing, it's my favorite sport. Um, you don't want players to have the ability or the freedom to be able to bet on themselves. You don't want that. Boxers can do that, right? Floyd Mayweather, through proxies or by his own hand, will place bets on himself to win fights. There's fighters who have done that in the past. It's happened forever. But yeah, you just can't have that. Speaking of the corner that you mentioned with the Colts, and not that we want to beat this like a dead horse, but we should check his blown coverage rate, and then that'll be a good indicator of what he was
Yeah.
gambling on.
True. That's true. Um, the part of this though that I want to bring up is the Bay Area's reaction to Ohtani.
Oh,
So when the story broke, that's for Giants fans. Giants fans have had a weird week. They had the news. They had the news of Rennell not coming back. Then they got the excitement of Go ahead, Alon. Do you have a reaction to that one real quick?
I don't understand that at all. And everybody else, whether they're a Giants fan or not, who has been to that stadium, who has gone to games and loves it and has a great time, myself included, that's
Yeah,
just part of the game.
exactly.
That's part of being there. And it's iconic. And so Rennell, for instance, how many, and I think Matt Kolsky said this on your podcast last week, but
Yeah.
I agree with it. How many baseball PA announcers do people know by name and directly associate with a stadium
Yep.
in that way? I can't think of many. Dick Callahan, the Oakland Coliseum. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Roy Steele.
Roy Steele, but it's not even on that level. It's there was such a connection there for Giants fans, and
Absolutely.
and it was unique. It was unique to have a female voice too.
Yeah.
So, and it worked. It wasn't just the uniqueness of it. It worked, and it was really good. It was a good environment. So I don't know. And the thing is, contract differences, like that stuff's so weird to me. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think the reality was she was outspoken against Charles Johnson, and that's what led to her downfall,
Well,
which is unfortunate.
yeah, and if that's what happens, if you're outspoken against one of the owners, then that's what's going to happen, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
I will say this, yeah, Giants fans, they get that whammy, like you said, weird week, but now they have this. They're going to be like dogs on red meat, dude. When the Dodgers go there, they're going to let Ohtani hear it, and I'm there for it. I would like to go to one of those games just to see what it's like.
That will amp up the rivalry. But yeah, so Rennell is out. Blake Snell comes in, and then they have this news with Ohtani, which of course, if there's any bad news about the Dodgers, then Giants fans will feast.
Yeah.
And I have never liked that. I got to be completely honest. And I know if Adam Copeland listens to this, he's going to give me a bunch of shit. I don't care. I find it extremely petty when Giants fans just revel in the Dodgers' misery. I'm sorry, but like whenever they lost in the World Series and everybody's like, or they lost in the first round to the Padres or whoever, and they're like, oh, Dodgers, they can't win. It's like, well, Giants, you weren't even there. So
Yeah.
what the fuck can you say? And for me, and I know, yeah, like Ernie, or like I know all the Giants fans are gonna tell me to eat shit. I don't care because you know I'm right. Because you know I'm right. So whenever like people always said to me like, oh, when the Raiders weren't in the playoffs and the Broncos won the Super Bowl, did you talk shit? No, because you can't talk shit. The Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls. I can't say shit right now
Yeah.
They're the cream of the crop. They are the pillars of the NFL right now. So I just the whole Giants fan base of whenever like we filmed a video earlier this year, Alon, where Otani struck out in spring training, and everybody's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm the one guy in the video going, it's spring training. What's wrong with all of you? And it was comical, but that actually happened. That was me in the bullpen at KMBR, and everybody cheered when Otani struck out. And I was like, you guys are fucking insane. This is spring training. Relax. And so the same thing with this story. As soon as Otani gets in trouble, everybody's like, "Oh, throw him in jail! Throw him in jail! That piece of shit, Otani! How dare he?"
He knew what he was doing.
Exactly. And I'm like, please, if
Yeah.
Otani signed with the Giants, you guys would all be defending him. So here's my thing. I've seen, Giants fans tweet out stuff and go on KMBR or the other station 95.7 and talk about Otani and how, yeah, screw him. This is good for the Giants. Please. For any Giants fan that is pointing the finger at Otani and then defends Barry Bonds, sorry, you're full of shit. I'm sorry. But like, come on. Are you like my boy Adam Copeland? Like, is he gonna go on Twitter and say, like, is Otani a scumbag? You can't say the same thing about Barry Bonds? Didn't Greg Anderson do a whole bid for him? So come on, it's
Yeah.
the ultimate fall guy. So I just don't want to hear this anymore. I know it's fun for fans and everything, but you can't be like, oh yeah, Otani, how dare he? He's terrible for the integrity of baseball. Really, and Barry Bonds wasn't. Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
I That's so funny.
Sorry,
that,
I just been waiting to unload. It's like the
no,
Spider-Man meme, and I hate referencing memes or gifs, but when Spider-Man and the other Spider-Man point to each other, it's the same thing as Giants fans calling out Otani and then like, oh, show me a drug test of Barry Bonds. Like, get the fuck out of here.
so so the reason I laugh about this is Derek, you're out here defending the honor of the sport and trying to bring some civility to it as well, and trying to tamp down on people's just straight up tribalism. But I will say this with baseball. So in football, there's the shit talk that happens, right? Well, you may have won the Super Bowl, but F you, I still hate you kind of thing. Whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
In baseball, it is such a haves and have not kind of sport. And it just feeds into that. They got the player that we wanted. They're spending more money than we want to spend. And it's just people get so angry and pent up about it. And this is all against the backdrop of the Dodgers have won one World Series in the last 15 years. You guys have won, the Giants have won 3. And the one that the Dodgers have, people, like we said earlier, call the legitimacy of it into question.
Yep.
So is there really that much to get riled up about? I think if people took a step back, they would say no. But on the other hand, they're not going to. They're going to let him have it every time he's in San Francisco.
That's
at
fine.
Oracle.
That's totally fine.
And you are right about this. If Ohtani was on the Giants, they'd be defending him like it was the Alamo.
I'm
They'd
calling
be trying.
I'm calling out Ernie 1 and Ernie 2 right now. What would you guys do if Ohtani signed with the Giants, but yet this scandal is happening right now? How would you react? Would you defend him, or would you call him out like you're doing it right now?
They'd be out there. They'd be out there with billboards in front of Sacramento trying
Free
to get
Ohtani.
The gambling laws changed in the states.
Yes,
that's what they'd be trying to do, and that's fine. That's your guy. If he's your guy, you gotta do that, I guess. But what? There's gonna be. There could be some stuff that happens. You remember when Barry Bonds was on the field and someone threw a syringe out there, I think, landed on the field. Yeah, someone's going to throw like a big DraftKings foam finger out onto the field while Ohtani's trying to pitch or something. Something weird's going to happen like that.
Yeah. No, I don't doubt that. And yeah, he'll take a hit and that will give more ammunition to the Giants fans. But I don't know. Like, come on, guys. You can't tell me that Ohtani is guilty of this and then say, well, Barry Bonds, he was the greatest human being of all time. Please stop it.
It's going to be lovely to watch not just the Giants fan base, but so many other fan bases across the country when the Dodgers go in, heckle him and make fun of him for this.
Yeah, JD. Sorry. Go ahead, Lon. Sorry.
I was just going to say, just give him grief, and then to watch him And I love Ohtani just slam one into the upper deck. And then
Exactly.
it's Ohtani's heel turn. It's his bad guy arc.
Yes. And JD nails it here. Giants fans, he was just helping out a friend, impeccable values. Yeah, I was joking with them. Was just like if Otani got busted and he signed with the Giants, everybody's be like, "Oh, Farhan fucked up again. Come on." She's like, "How are you gonna know that stuff?" So
Yeah.
everybody just relax. Okay, I get it. It's fun for the rivalry and stuff. At the end of the day, Dodgers are loaded, and the Giants are good too. I expect both teams to make the playoffs. But I think the Dodgers are winning more games, and I think they're a better team. And I think you, you could be a diehard Giants fan and think otherwise. But if you're really just being objective and watching, or no rosters in baseball, I think everyone's going to expect the Dodgers to win more games.
Giants have the edge in one category, even though
Manager,
it's manager. Even
yeah,
even though Bob Melvin doesn't have that World Series ring in Oakland, and um, probably won't get one this year with the Giants, but and Dave Roberts does, but yeah. Other than that, the Dodgers are just stacked. So,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean the Giants can't compete. The Giants
No,
can't. The Giants can totally compete. And if anything, what did the Arizona Diamondbacks prove last year in the NL West?
if you
Think
make
about
the playoff in general, if you make the playoffs, you could do anything.
you can do anything. Yeah, you just got to you just punch your
Baseball
ticket.
is baseball is a momentum playoff, in my opinion. The team that's the hottest going into it will most likely be the ones that are winning.
Yeah, it's all about streaks. It's about getting hot at the right time and just being in a good groove. So, but yeah, Derek, they're gonna let Ohtani hear it, and I'm definitely gonna go to one of those games. I always try to go to a Giants Dodger game every year when I can, and
Yeah.
this year I definitely want
Oh
to
no,
go
I mean
watch.
I will be there. I mean, because both teams, like, let's be honest too. We'll talk about it more on Wednesday with Steven. Giants are, entertaining again
Yeah,
and watchable. I'll be completely honest. Last 2 years that I've come back to the Bay Area, I've been covering this Giants team. It's been hard because honestly, I didn't care. I don't care about these random ass players on the team. Now that they got Blake Snell and Matt Chapman and Bob Melvin, yeah. And I think Gabe Kapler was a fine dude, but like as a manager, not I don't know what the hell he was talking about half the time.
it was a fine
So
dude.
yeah, fine dude. I
Hmm.
can't deny that. But but as far like yeah, like the Giants will probably be watchable again. So I'll go check them out. I'll see if I go to A's games this year. That's a little interesting thing for me. I'll be at the Ballers games, but as far like yeah, I think that I'm being as real as I can be. Giants fans are petty, but their team is watchable again.
Yeah. Well, it's because the most exciting thing that's happened to them this year isn't like, oh, we got Jock Peterson off the scrap heap.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
think about when that was going on. It was horrible.
Yes,
Yeah. So,
and also yeah, JD here. I love Gabe Kapler.
I
Fun story.
did,
He did not.
I was gonna
All right.
say, is JD into his like? I just woke up with a cup of coffee. Now
Oh, those
I'm
videos,
I'm traveling over here and doing this cool
bro.
thing.
Bro, if you're looking for the best burger spot
Oh
in all of San
gosh,
Francisco, go to this back alley. This guy who's huffing paint will give you a fantastic burger.
he's
Anyway,
Anthony Bourdain. He wants to be.
he does. All right, let's transition to a little football. So Lon, you haven't been on since NFL free agency started, and diehard Raider fan. So tell me, what do you think of the moves that were done for the Las Vegas Raiders? Christian Wilkins coming aboard, Gardner Minshew to be in the quarterback mix, maybe the starter. We'll see what happens there with Aiden O'Connell, but that's a whole thing with the draft and whatnot. What'd you think of the moves made in free agency by the Raiders?
Thought they were good for the most part. I was a little disappointed with Josh Jacobs, them not retaining him.
Yeah,
But $48 million for a guy who has been a little hurt here and there, that's an issue. And that's ultimately probably what did it in for him with the Raiders and Tom Telesco now. Is they're just like, we can't devote this much money to a guy where it's up and down every year. That being said, when he is playing the majority of games and even playing at an above average level, he's one of the best backs in the league. I mean, he's just good. He's good catching the ball. He's good running the ball. So the Packers got a good player there. But Christian Wilkins, that's a big signing. And I think his sack numbers were definitely an aberration last year. They're definitely out of the ordinary for him. because previous to that, he hadn't put up that kind of production. I think he had 5 sacks was the most in a season, and then last year he had 9. But one thing he does do is he eats up double teams left and right. He busts through the line. He makes so many tackles for loss. He makes a ton of tackles for a defensive tackle. I mean, probably have to look, but since he's been in the league, like if you just track his time in the league, in terms of an interior defensive lineman, he's got to be in the top 3 or 4 or 5 for tackles. So that's huge. So that was a really big signing. Did they overpay for him? Yeah, of course they did because it's free agency. But that's to be expected. Even when you're signing a top guy in free agency, you're going to end up overpaying him by someone's metric, some capologist who say, well, actually his real worth is this, and they paid 20% more. But leave that to the nerds.
I wouldn't say they overpaid for him. I think that that's just the way that defensive tackles are getting paid these days, and he's given pretty good sack numbers. So he's not Aaron Donald or Chris Jones, but I think he should be paid in the same kind of range.
He's not quite there, but he's a different type of player and a slightly different type of player because he's more of a run eater. But he's like right in that kind of level. He's right. If he's not at that level, he's right below it. But I thought that was a good signing for them. The Gardner Minshew thing, I think that's a very important signing because Gardner Minshew will play this season.
Okay.
They're not just bringing him in just to ride the pine. They don't want him to be the starter, I don't think, for a very long time, if any amount of time. But I believe he will end up playing this season. And the fact that it's basically a 1-year contract. It's a $12 million guaranteed 25 mil 2-year contract. So I think that's good business. He was 7-6 as a starter last year. Similar situation to the Colts in some way. They didn't want him to be the starter last year. They wanted AR to be the starter. And Gardner Minshew ends up having to be the starter and almost gets them into, it gets a new showdown with the Texans at the end of the season. So that signing's good. Some people, some of the real diehard Raider fans are like, well, he was a Pro Bowler. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. I don't care if he was a Pro Bowler.
So was Mac Jones.
Like, let's
Pro Bowl doesn't mean jack shit these days.
Does,
we all know.
No, doesn't mean anything. But what does mean something is that you have 2 guys who have shown that they can at least win games. Maybe they're not proven long-term winners, but they have 2 guys in the quarterback room that can now win games, which is important for a team like the Raiders, who, to be honest, besides the offensive line, and I'm talking right tackle and guard, don't really have too many holes on offense. They don't. And the quarterback would be the biggest, but at least you have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and definitely with Gardner, who looks like worst case scenario for that team, he could be a stopgap for a year and a half before you really figure something out. All that being said, I don't see how they do not pick double negative there, but I don't see a world in which they don't pick a quarterback in the draft. I don't think they're going to use the number 13 on a quarterback if they stay at 13. If they stay at 13, they will probably draft either an offensive tackle or maybe like Terry and Arnold, maybe a cornerback, something like that, and then try to trade back into the first round, something like that, to try to get a quarterback. Or they might just trade down from the 13 and then take a quarterback towards the end of the first round, which could also be likely. I think they are going to try to trade up, but all the reports have indicated that the top 3 teams there, the top 3 guys, no one wants to trade out of those spots. Now, that could all change on draft day, but
yeah. No, it definitely could. Me and Steven have been talking about it with the mindset that it's going to go 1, Caleb Williams, 2, it sounds like Jaden Daniels, but I hear flip-flopping between him or Drake May, and Patriots draft Drake May or Jaden Daniels. So those 3 guys are going. And then lately, it sounds like the Minnesota Vikings are dead set on J.J. McCarthy being their guy at 4. So they'll work out a trade with the Arizona Cardinals. I guess the latest is a lot of people believe that the Arizona Cardinals will move with the Minnesota Vikings, where they get 11-23, the Cardinals, and the Vikings move up to 4. Cardinals move down to those two spots. So they'll get 3 first round picks in 11, 23, and 27 because they have the Texans first rounder as well. Then the Cardinals will go back at 5 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. And I know a lot of Charger fans really want them to draft a wide receiver. I think they're set on shoring up that offensive line and getting another wide receiver later on. So, I think that you could see the Cardinals move up to 5, and then the Chargers go down to 11 and 23, where they can get a combo of the tackle and the wide receiver. As far as the Raiders, yeah, I agree with you with everything as far as the moves and quarterback wise in the draft. You know, they're probably their biggest needs right now are quarterback, offensive line, and corner. And I think they
Yes.
can address the cornerback position a little bit more in free agency. There's some good names still available. There's Xavier Howard, who was with Patrick Graham in Miami. There's also Stephon Gilmore, who knows Patrick Graham from the Patriots. There are those
Tre'Davious White.
Tre'Davious White, who's coming off an Achilles and ACL, but he did visit with the Raiders this past week. So I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of young corners on the Raiders to begin with already. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make a veteran move there for a corner when we get past the draft and see who the older guys that are still available. They could revisit getting a veteran corner. As far as quarterback in the draft, I'm with you, Alon. Me and Steven have been talking about that maybe they got to move up in the draft if they want to get the guy that they want. But I don't know if that's the case anymore. I've been thinking about it, and the more mock drafts I look at, and the more I've been listening to, Daniel Jeremiah and other draft experts talk, maybe they don't need to. Maybe they can stay put at 13, or maybe they don't even need to pick their quarterback in the first round. It sounds like people are dead set on J.J. McCarthy being the fourth best quarterback in this draft. I don't see it, but I'll ask your opinion in a little bit here. So the guys that the Raiders really are looking at most likely are Bo Nix and Michael Penix. And I guess you could throw J.J. McCarthy in there. I'll ask your opinion on him, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think he's either going to the Vikings at 4 if they move up, or the Giants are supposedly linked to him as well. And I don't know what's going on with Daniel Jones and whatnot with their feelings on him. But the more I think about it, the more I do believe that the Raiders could just stay at 13, draft the best tackle available, and then revisit what's going on later in the draft. If they need to get back into the first round to get whoever they want at quarterback, they could do that. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. The Carolina Panthers were the worst team in football a year ago, and they don't have a first round pick to show for it. And second round, they have the first pick at 33rd overall. The Raiders could easily trade with the Carolina Panthers, and the Raiders can move up in the draft, make sure that they are the first team selecting on day 2, and select Michael Penix. Because it sounds to me like people are not gunning for Michael Penix like they are for J.J. McCarthy. So the Raiders could just let it play out, get other things of need, go after the tackles that are available in this draft, past Joe Alt, like the guy from Oregon State. I could be butchering his name here. Talisi Fuhaga. Do you know his name?
Yes. Yeah. And then, so from Oregon State, and then you also have like JC Latham from Alabama. Like, there's some good tackles
Or
out there.
Troy Fatunahu.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, or the other guy from Penn State. His name's a mouthful as well. I'll understand these guys' names or how to pronounce them later on. But yeah, I think that the Raiders. I don't think teams are clamoring for Michael Penix or Bo Nix like they are for J.J. McCarthy for whatever reason, and I do think that the Raiders could draft a offensive tackle at 13 and then move up in the second round to make sure they get Michael Penix. I think Bo Nix could be a QB that the Broncos are looking after, and I think they could trade down to go get him. I don't think they need to get him, in the top 12, whatever. Well, yeah, they're 12. So they could just, make some moves because they need draft picks as well. So I'm with you, Alon. A couple days ago, or even a couple weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, or even a couple days ago, I was suggesting that the Raiders may need to move up to get the quarterback that they want in this draft. And now I'm thinking that maybe they don't need to. Maybe that they can address another need like tackle and then get Michael Penix in the second round.
So I agree with that. And real quick, because you brought up the Arizona Cardinals, I think they are sitting in like the best spot
Yeah.
in the draft because they don't need a quarterback. They have a quarterback and they can trade out. They can make whatever the best deal for them is. So good for them. They're in a very fortunate position. As far as the Raiders go, I think they could trade down, or they could just stick where they are and pick. The nice thing where the kind of the Raiders are in their quarterback situation, let's just assume that the top 3 guys are off the board. Heck, maybe even the top 4 guys are off the board by then. Let's assume that happens. Everyone picking behind them. I mean, if you look at the list, New Orleans is right behind them. Could they draft a quarterback? Yeah, they could, but they're not
Mm,
really in that position yet to draft one. They
yeah.
don't need one yet. You go further down the list, there's not really anybody behind them that is saying, "Oh, we need a quarterback. We need a quarterback." And that's a really good position for the Raiders to be in if they do want some trade flexibility to trade down. That being said, I think it would be the most prudent move to draft the best tackle available, or corner. If they want to get a corner, you can take a corner high and do that as well. And then trade back up either with Carolina, New England, Arizona doesn't seem like they're going to be too shy to trade here in this draft this year. So they hold the 3rd pick in the 2nd round. You could even trade there. And unfortunately for Michael Penix, but fortunate for whoever has their eye on him, is that injury history for some reason is just bogging him down. And you brought up JJ McCarthy. So I saw McCarthy play in person at the Rose Bowl,
Yeah.
and he played well. He made what should have been an interception on the first play of the game
I remember that.
with a real boneheaded decision. And in the NFL, it's getting picked every day of the week. Just happened to not make the play there. But he had some other plays. I remember he had one where he scrambled out and he almost got sacked. It was a throwback, and he caught it and then like pirouetted, turned around, and then hucked one up and got a big play like that, big college trick play. But and then he had some other ones where he was able to hit some wide open guys like in the flat and things like that, and he showed off his mobility a little bit, but he's just so untested. And they didn't have a receiver. So who's their top receiver over at Michigan? Roman, I believe is his name.
Roman Wilson.
Roman Wilson. Yeah, Roman Wilson. I mean, he didn't go, and I know they're not a passing team. They're not an aired out team. But I don't think he went over 700 yards this year, 750 yards for the entire year. So I see that. And in a lot of ways, McCarthy reminds me of one of these quarterbacks that we used to see come out of North Dakota State, like one of those guys who doesn't play in an offense that passes, so that would be Trey Lance and Carson Wentz kind of guys who, oh, maybe there's a lot of untapped raw ability there and they've shown flashes of it, but they just haven't slung the rock around enough in college. So I read these reports about people thinking, like for instance, Hondo Carpenter, he had a piece out a while ago that said people that he trusts in the NFL that have been good evaluators of talent, they really like JJ McCarthy. And I'm just like, I can't see it, but I'm not an evaluator of talent. I'm just a media guy. So maybe they see something I don't.
Yeah.
So I'm out on McCarthy. Bo Nix, I think, is fascinating because he does have the tool set that you want. But again, he's done it in a different way in college. 30%, something like 30. And I always harp on this, but I finally found a number on it. According to Pro Football Focus, about 30% of his passes are behind the line of scrimmage. So that's kind of a red flag to me. I'm like, you're going to run 30% of your offense in the NFL behind the line of scrimmage? Or what are you going to tell him to do? You're going to tell him to try to throw deep, and if it's not there, run. He's fast, but he's not that fast as far as NFL goes. And likewise, when I see him, and if I saw him in a Raider uniform, I go, oh boy, this is a young Derek Carr all over again. It could go really well, and he could develop into something, or God forbid it happens. What happened to Derek Carr? Breaks his leg, and trajectory of his career changes. Um, but yeah, I just I don't see it. He can throw it hard, but I don't really like his deep ball. He overthrows the ball too much. He leaves some easy touchdowns out there. Penix, his biggest issues are this, and maybe this is me talking myself into Penix because he's like the consolation prize. But Penix's biggest issue is this: he missed some throws, and he missed some easy throws, I would say, in the national championship game. So that's
Yeah.
still at the front of everybody's mind. You have that, and you have the fact that he was injured. Now, a more football analysis from an entire season standpoint, he was protected like nobody even you can't dream of better pass protection than what he got at Washington. So those are his drawbacks. It's almost like, well, he passed the ball really well, but he had an amazing offensive line in front of him. And it's like, well, will he have that in the NFL? I'm like, I don't know if he can hold that against the guy, especially when he can sling it like the way Penix can. Um, I think the injury thing, we've talked about this at length, Derek, and you kind of got me over on the other side of this. That seems to be in the past.
Yeah.
And really the big issue is he missed some easy throws in the national championship, but the guy's gutsy as all get out. I mean, he went toe to toe with Oregon twice and they won. So I think he could be a gem if he doesn't get hurt and he develops properly. And if you're the Raiders and you have a quarterback room that right now is spearheaded by Gardner Minshew, Michael Penix is not a bad addition if you can't jump into that top three. And I really think the only guy they want in that top three is Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams, they would obviously take, but the Bears are taking him every day of the week.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty clear with the given ties to ASU and Antonio Pierce and Jaden Daniels that they will want him. And I'm sure that was, probably on the table when they were negotiating with Cliff Kingsbury as far as like what's the plan quarterback wise. They may have told him we're probably going to try to shoot for Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels. And then when it became clear that both those teams were not going to move out of those spots, then I'm sure Cliff Kingsbury became disinterested with the job.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Alon. You're saying that between the three, McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, you like Michael Penix the most.
He's the best. He's the best deep ball thrower. He throws better than both of those guys, and he's proven. That's really the thing. He's proven. I think he has thrown the ball a lot. He's made every throw you can ask him to do. He hasn't been protected by scheming, which I think Bo Nix has been. And I think McCarthy is unproven. I think McCarthy could be good, sure, because he is athletic and he looks like he can make all the throws, but I don't know if he's going to be able to process that fast because he didn't have to in college even.
Yeah. One criticism I do hear from you and a lot of people is that when you watch Washington, he had a lot of help. That offensive line and the receivers. I mean, you're going to have his tackle go high in the draft. You're going to have Rome Odunze go high in the draft, and you're going to have those other two guys, the wide receivers, go in the draft somewhere. So a big criticism of Michael Penix is he gets a lot of help around him when he was at Washington. And when he doesn't have that help, he doesn't look great. Case in point, the national championship. He looked amazing against Texas. The next week, he looked terrible. Where do you come down on how much help that Michael Penix had in college could be a hindrance to him when he goes to the pros?
I don't put much stock into that argument in terms of the skill position. I do in terms of offensive line, just because things are faster in the NFL, and that there's probably a lot of quarterbacks who could have been very, very good quarterbacks who didn't make it in the NFL because they didn't get protection. David Carr might be a good example. Drafted very high by the Texans first overall and then gets sacked into oblivion. But that's just the one I can think off the top of my head. Geno Smith's another good one. But I think he will get the skill position players to help him in the NFL, especially if he goes to the Raiders. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I could also make the same argument for Jaden Daniels. Maybe his offensive line wasn't as good at LSU, and it definitely wasn't. But he had Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors. I mean, he had two bona fide number one style receivers on that team. And yeah, did he make a lot happen with his legs and buy time and then get those guys? Of course. But they were getting open on almost every play. So I I just don't think that you can all pin his success on the fact that he had help. And I think the Texas game is very interesting one to look at. And that probably will be one that a lot of teams look at before they decide to draft him over and over again. I mean, I don't think they'll be looking like crazy at the Michigan game. I think they'll be looking at that Texas game.
Oh, definitely. But I think they'll look at the Michigan game and just ask him like, what went wrong here? Like, well,
Yeah.
you're going to see defenses like this on a weekly basis. So, or better than this, obviously. So, what went wrong here? But I'm with you. I think that Raider fans are looking at Michael Penix as the guy, and I think it's a good situation because there are question marks with him, but he definitely could be that diamond in the rough. I think that a lot of people looked at him when that playoff game was going on and we're like, how come this guy's not the second overall pick? Or how come he's not considered, the guy next after Caleb Williams? And their injury stuff came into play, and then the national championship came into play. But yeah, if he falls to the Raiders in the second round, that'd be perfect, I think. And I think that would be a ideal scenario with Gardner Minshew most likely being the guy and Michael Penix being the backup. And then Aiden O'Connell being that third string option, whatever, or maybe even Aiden O'Connell's number 2 and Michael Penix is number 3 for a season. Who knows? I think that would be the best case scenario is having all 3 guys because more teams we saw a year ago are carrying 3 quarterbacks into the season. That used to be for a long time where it was just 2, but now I think people want the stability and the rule change where you can have a third string quarterback active for game days and not have it, it just means that the other 2 guys can't go in later. But no, I think that would be the best case scenario is drafting a tackle at 13, getting back in the early part of the second round to get Penix, and going in with 3 quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, Ian O'Connell, and Michael Penix.
I do think as well, if they are kind of dead set on drafting Penix, if they get to that point, they will have to address offensive tackle rather than cornerback with their early pick. And you're preferably going to have that. Well, you're going to have that person play right tackle because left tackle is manned by Colton Miller.
Yeah.
But right tackle is going to be of high import because Michael Penix is a lefty. So you got to think about that. Things kind of switch a little bit if Michael Penix is your quarterback. And so whether they address that through the draft, which I think that's what they should do, or if they go pick up someone who's on the street like Trent Brown, you want to do Trent Brown, run it back with Trent Brown over at right tackle.
Trent Brown actually just signed with the Bengals.
Signed. Yeah, never mind. So you can't even do that. And there's no one. Yeah, because that's who I was thinking of. And then I'm like, wait, that doesn't even make sense anymore. So you're going to have to draft. You're going to have to draft a right tackle. There's just no way around
they
it.
Did,
and they lost Jermaine Illuminor already.
Oh, they did? Did he went somewhere else?
He went to the Giants.
Oh, okay. I thought he was signed with the Raiders. I guess I misread that. They did re-sign somebody, I want to say, on the offensive line. The Raiders did. That was a right tackle. Or didn't they draft somebody a couple years ago?
They have, I believe they still have Brandon Parker on the roster.
I believe so, but he may have left too.
He is. He's with the San Francisco 49ers now. So
Brandon Parker, okay.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure who they have on the right side of that line, and that's pardon me. That's my fault for not looking that up. But I think they're gonna.
It's a thing we do a lot on the show.
I think they're gonna have to draft a right tackle, and unfortunately for them, they got to make sure it's a good one. It can't be Alex Leatherwood again. It's going to have to be a tack. So this is who they have. They have Thayer Munford. I forgot about Thayer Munford. So he's decent. He can play from Ohio State. And then they also have
DJ Fluker.
Fluker. They have DJ Fluker. So those are the 2 that I can think of besides Colton Miller. So, there's some competition there, but it's definitely, unless they think Thayer Munford's a long-term answer, they probably would have to draft a tackle.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for all the teams, when you see when you see like a free agent sign a 1-year contract, that doesn't necessarily mean that that spot is solidified. It just
Ye-
means that they
Yeah.
have a veteran presence there, and most likely they will address that need in the draft to have someone be there for the long haul. So I do think the Raiders will address right tackle. They need to. It's been you know literally a blind spot for them for the longest time. Um, but as far as they also need to address the quarterback position, and I think getting yes, to answer Ernie Two's question, who do you guys prefer, Bo Nix or Michael Penix? Alon definitely prefers Michael Penix. I still got to watch all these guys, and I will more so in the month of April. I'll be watching all whatever I can find on YouTube of all the breakdowns of these quarterbacks. But if I had to say right now, yeah, I would lean towards Michael Penix from what I've seen in college. I would go that route, and I think that having a situation with Minshew and O'Connell and him, and getting the right tackle in the first round, I think would be really a good move. All good moves for Tom Telesco in his first time as Raiders GM.
Yeah, Tom Telesco, on paper, it always seemed like he built a very good roster in for the Chargers,
Yeah,
and now that's kind of falling apart, obviously, with a lot of the contracts that they gave out. But it never seemed there's a reason why the Chargers always get so much hype, right? Before the season starts. And you were down there in LA working for the NFL Network, Derek. So you saw it up close and personal every year you're down there. You saw, oh, the Chargers could be real contenders. Well, they didn't really put it together, but we can all probably now look at that and say, I don't think that was Tom Telesco's fault. Pretty sure it was Brandon Staley's fault.
yeah, it was. It was.
So and yeah, did they have some players who were perpetually injured? Sure, they did, especially at the wide receiver spot. But I think Tom Telesco is an established GM. Obviously, he's that, but he's in a position where he's being given a lot of freedom. I think that's one reason that makes that Raiders GM job very attractive. Is that Mark Davis just says, go out, do your job, do what you need to do, make my team really good. But if you don't do that, I will fire you. And
Yeah.
so it's like, well, that's all you can really ask for a GM. So I think Tom Telesco is going to try his darndest to make a big swing and get up in the draft. But if it's just not there and it's not realistic, he's not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I when you say take a big swing, like what do you mean?
I mean, talk about giving away two years worth of picks, really, to get into that top three. I don't think that trade's going to be answered
Yeah.
positively on the other side. I'm just saying I think he is going to try to do that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I do think they want Jaden Daniels. If they really
Yeah.
if they're being realistic about it, they're probably settling for Michael Penix. But if they
Mm-hmm.
want an ideal situation, yeah, Jaden Daniels would be the guy given his familiarity with Antonio Pierce. But I don't think that's going to happen. I
One more to,
think
yeah, you keep going. Sorry.
no, I just think that that's set in stone. I do think the Bears, Commanders, and Patriots will all be selecting quarterbacks 1, 2, 3.
No, yeah, and I don't think they are trading out of these spots. One last thing about these quarterbacks, these top guys, with the exception of Caleb Williams, and I'm just looking up Drake May here just to make sure. So with the exception of Williams and May, like you look at the other guys, McCarthy, Nix, and Penix, and I mean they're older guys. Like JJ McCarthy, I believe, is past the age of 22. I know Penix is going to be 24 once the season starts, and Bo Nix is already 24. So, oh no, so JJ McCarthy will be 22 this upcoming year. But
Okay.
the Penix and Nix specifically, and Jaden Daniels, he's been in college football for a while as well, but they are not spring chickens when it comes to quarterback prospects. So Jaden Daniels will be 24 during the season. So those three of those guys are going to be 24 years old or slightly over 24 years old. And that is a detractor too for a lot of people on those prospects. But
Yeah, but none of them are Brandon Whedon though.
no, they're not Brandon Whedon, who was what, 26?
29, 29.
29. That's what he was, because he played baseball and then decided to
Yes.
go play football.
First, just think about how like 10 years ago, how crazy that was.
Yeah.
Brandon Whedon, 29, taken in the first round.
And it was
Today he'd probably be like a third round pick.
and it was considered a positive. The teams that were looking at him were saying, "Well, he's more mature. He'll be ready to step into an NFL locker room." Yeah, that didn't work out too well.
No, it didn't work out instantly.
No,
Like he got drafted, and then
he
I
got,
think Johnny Manziel got drafted 2 years later.
it's just not. Yeah, that didn't work out. So
Yeah.
the age thing is a little bit of a concern for some people.
I
But
don't. I mean, like when it comes to 24 years old, that's not that big of a deal to me.
it's not. I mean, it's not a huge deal to me either. But I will say this: this will probably be the last time we see a crop of top quarterbacks, or the last time for a while, who are of that age getting drafted in the first 2 rounds. And that's just because these are kind of the last of the COVID year holdout kind of guys,
Right. I
holdover.
got you.
So we'll have to deal with that age thing in the upcoming drafts. But that's another thing to keep your eye on is if you do draft one of these guys, if you're a team that drafts a Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels or even a Penix, like the window is slightly shorter with those guys because, if they're going to be there for 10 years, they're 34 or 35 at the end of 10 years, not 32 or 33.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about the draft a lot more before it comes. I mean, geez, I think a month from today is when the NFL draft starts on the 24th or 25th. They could check out the calendar real quick here.
Two-day event for rounds 1 and 2.
Yes.
I
A week or sorry, a month from tomorrow, April 25th is when things all kick off for the NFL draft in Detroit.
I wish it was. I'm glad it's happening in Detroit, great American city. And it needs revitalization. But
Yeah.
I still wish the draft, Derek, was the way it was when we were younger, when we were kids.
Saturday.
Wake up on a
An all-day
Saturday,
thing.
and then Sunday, the second half, and that's it.
Yeah, it's definitely become more of a TV event now with having just the first round on Thursday night, then Friday night, then Saturday morning. Um, I'm fine with the way it is. I watch all of it.
I do too.
I did enjoy it back in the day when it was on a Saturday and you just spent the whole day watching. I think picks rounds 1 through 4, and then 5, 6, 7 on Sunday. I think that's the way it was.
It was either 1 through 3 the first day, or 1 through 4 the first day, and then the rest on the next day. And
I mean, I don't have a problem with either one, but yeah, it definitely turns into a more of a. The first round is definitely more exciting now.
it's just too much suspense. I can't wait. It's just too much of a tease.
I
I
know.
just want to watch the whole thing.
I know, I'm with you, but that's how they get you. It turns into
Yeah.
a 3-day event, and you watch the whole weekend.
Yep.
So one thing Raider fans don't have to worry about though anymore is L'Jarius Sneed. This happened Friday night. L'Jarius Sneed finally got traded to the Tennessee Titans for a 2025 third-round pick and a 2024 seventh-round pick swap. Just not a lot of value. But I think that's the
No.
case. I definitely think it's the case these days is when a team knows they're trading for a guy that's going to garner
Yeah.
a huge contract too, that the draft compensation won't be that much.
There's just no leverage.
Exactly. So L'Jarius Sneed signs a 4-year, $76 million deal with 55 guaranteed, making him the highest paid corner in football. Really good player. Don't know if he's the best corner in football, but yeah, he leaves the AFC West now to go play for the Titans.
One, they have Chidobe Awuzie.
Yep,
who
from
they
the Bengals.
who they signed for like $40 million or something like that, 3-year contract. So if they're going to keep Sneed, they kind of have an expensive defensive backfield, in the making.
Well, I would hope
there.
they're going to keep Sneed. They just signed him a contract.
Sorry. What did they sign him to? How many years?
4 years, 76 million. So he gets 19 per.
Yeah. So
and he was going to pay on the tag. He was going to play on the tag this year, 19 and a half.
Yeah, he was going to play on the tag. So if they're going to keep that intact, they better get production. But what's so weird to me there is the Titans, I don't know. They're in rebuild mode. I mean, there's
yes
no way
no.
to put. You don't think they are? I mean, do you think Will
They
Levis
just went all out to go get Calvin Ridley. They got DeAndre Hopkins on their team. They signed Tony Pollard. I think they're trying to win in the AFC South.
I think they are trying to win in the AFC South because they probably just look at Jacksonville and like we can deal with that, and they look at Indianapolis and they're like we can deal with that. But
Houston's the
I,
top dog now, though.
yeah, Houston. Well, Houston is the top dog, but they're probably also looking at Houston saying we can contend with Houston. Granted that Houston just had a heck of a year last year and maybe will not stay consistent because we've seen teams not stay consistent before. But the way CJ Stroud plays, I don't know if that's the case.
And they made great moves getting Danielle Hunter and Joe Mixon. But yeah, definitely a good spot for L'Jarius Sneed. Yeah, there's very few teams that could pay him that money, and the Titans not having to pay Will Levis right now
No,
swoops in and gets a big contract for their new corner, L'Jarius Sneed. Rock a New Era comes in here real quick and asks, will Patrick Surtain be traded? I'm going to say no. I don't think that's happening. And I know that Niner fans have heard that rumor for a while. I think the Niners are going to have to address corner either in free agency or through the draft. I don't think the Niners are going to do a lot more of adding in free agency right now. They're kind of cash strapped. I think a lot of people were. I don't think they're signing Justin Simmons. I don't think they're getting Julian Blackman. I think they're going to have to settle for somebody like a Quandre Diggs, a little older safety. They're not doing anything else as far as pass rush. They got the linebacker they wanted in Devondre Campbell. I don't think they're doing anything of significance when it comes to making moves in free agency. I think it's going to be now time to settle for the draft.
and they're in a position where they can draft a corner and no one will be angry about it drafting second to last in the first round, but they could also trade up if they want to. I actually don't think that's a bad move for the Niners if they like a corner on the board, whether they don't want to wait around and take one where they are, they can move up. And if I was a Niner fan, I'd be happy about that because that's a position that they need to solidify.
Yep. No, they definitely do. But yeah, this is the first time that they're getting out of the Trey Lance trade, so
Yeah.
they're gonna focus on the draft right now. I think they're. I mean, don't be surprised if they draft a guard in the first round. I know a lot of fans will be like, "Oh, that's boring," but they need to assure that offensive line a little bit better. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go after a right tackle or a right guard, because Chris Jones. I mean, Niner fans know he gave them problems in the Super Bowl, so I wouldn't be surprised about that.
The one to keep an eye on too, if they don't get one early, like in the first round, or even if they trade it up in the second round, they could trade up at the top of the third or late second and get a guy like Zach Zinter, who played at Michigan, who's really good offensive lineman. So there's options there. The Niners are. It's kind of funny. You'd never want to be drafting at the end unless you won the Super Bowl, kind of thing, but it's just like Christmas Day or Christmas morning for the Niners because they got picks. They have picks now. So when they can start to restock and if you just feel like you're a few key rookies and key additions from going and actually getting over the hump and winning that Super Bowl, that's a great position to be in. And real quick about Pat Surtain, I don't see him being moved. And again on the Titans, just real quick as well, that I was just looking over their free agency signings and the crazy free agency they've had. They are building a lot. The reason I
Yeah.
say they're in a rebuild is because I don't believe in that quarterback. So as long as I don't believe in that Will Levis as a quarterback, I'm just like, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. You're spending a lot of money. That's what you're doing.
I mean, he definitely got over his fear of milk.
What? Oh, he was scared of milk. I know
Well,
he's a big mayonnaise guy.
yeah, he liked mayonnaise in the coffee. He was afraid of milk. It was like a fear of lactose or something. But yeah, he loves putting mayonnaise in the coffee. So
Yeah.
that's another guy the Raiders could have drafted. But we'll see what they do this upcoming draft. The NFL owners and coaches will be meeting. They actually are currently meeting, but they're all in Orlando. The meetings will take place tomorrow. This is like one of those fun times of year where we get more speculation. GMs are talking with each other. I remember last year. I want to say Odell went to the league meetings to go talk to teams in order for him to sign a new contract, and he ended up with the Ravens. So
So
we'll see
funny.
if. I mean, that could be more of a trend. We'll see if more free agents if a Justin Simmons, who's not happy with his current safety market, goes to the league meetings and wants to kind of speak to these guys. Like, how come you don't think I'm worth this much? But a big deal that will be taking place is the new rule changes. The owners will vote on this stuff, and the coaches. Tush push is staying. Nothing changing with the Eagles. They can still
Yeah.
do that play, although I don't think they're doing it. They won't do it as much
They
with
can't.
Jason Kelsey gone. I don't think they're going to be able to do that as much as they would like to.
No, it just he kind of he's a meme in a way just because of how outlandish he can be and how
Yeah,
emotional he gets. And but he was a really darn good player, and
yeah,
he made that thing work. He snapped the ball well, like he was able to get into blocking position really easily. I
yeah,
don't think they'll be able to run it with the same proficiency that they did.
yeah.
And also, a lot of people last season were saying, oh, tush push, gosh, it's kind of ruining these 4th and 1s, these 4th and 1.5s. And I'm like, how many teams are actually successfully doing it the way that the Eagles are? Not
Nobody.
no nobody. Everybody tried it, and really it was just the Eagles.
And a big part of how successful it is Jason Kelsey, but also Jalen Hurts is huge.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is a mountain of the man. It's like having Cam Newton run it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a big guy who
Or
can make it happen.
Josh Allen was successful doing it. I think we're going to see a little more of a decrease though from the Eagles standpoint, just because I think they're going to get a little more creative with Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But one play, I guess you could call it, or tackle. Tackle is the better way to say it. One thing it sounds like that will be taken away from the game is the drop hip tackle. And just to give you an example, that's basically what got Mark Andrews hurt a year ago. It's basically when a defender grabs the hips of the position player and then falls to the ground and swivels their hips in order to tackle him, take him down. And that's what happened last year. I believe it was Logan Wilson with Mark Andrews, or maybe it was Jermaine Pratt. But whoever did it, that led to Mark Andrews getting injured.
Yeah,
And now
It
they're
was Logan Wilson who
okay.
did it.
It was Logan Wilson, and now that is going to be, I guess, outlawed. Troy Vincent of the NFLPA, or not the NFLPA, but he works in the front office of the NFL, or the play, whatever the officiating aspect of things. He came out and basically said this is a tackle that needs to be taken out of the game. And the NFLPA came out and said, like, that's ridiculous. This is just a normal tackle that most players do. And I agree. I think, when you look at, the Mike Jones tackle in the Super Bowl 34 with the Rams and Titans, that is a drop hip tackle. And it prevented, um, who was it? Was it Derek
Wasn't
Mason? No, it
wasn't
wasn't Derek. It
was it
was
Kevin Dyson or
Kevin
was it
Dyson. It was
yeah.
Kevin Dyson from getting into the end zone. And I played football. You played football. There are different forms of tackling, but I think just to tell, I mean, you played football way more than me, Alon, but the to tell players, like, it's already hard enough to be a defender in football, professional football these days, because it doesn't benefit you. Like, that side of the ball gets no benefits.
Yeah.
To change that now with, like, just a regular form tackle is now going to be outlawed from the game, I think is kind of ridiculous.
So I'm just gonna share my screen here because
Yeah, go for it.
I have a really good. Hopefully this comes through. Do you guys see that?
Here, hold on, I'll get it up here.
Yeah, there it is. So that's basically what a hip drop tackle is. That's an
Yes.
example, and this is an article by USA Today that was posted after the Mark Andrews injury
Yes.
in November. So just to give you an idea, that's what it looks like. There are no benefits of the doubt right now. There's no advantages being given whatsoever. There's a lot of handicaps and disadvantages on the defensive side of things. I don't know how you can tell guys not to tackle like that.
Yeah.
And this is not a tackle that happens all the time. Now, some of the the NFL doctors, I guess, say that this type of tackle, or the doctors that they pay, I want to quote it correctly, 20 times higher instance of injury than a conventional tackle, right?
Yes.
And that's a crazy number. I don't know how they come up with that.
No, but I remember, like, that's how Terrell Owens broke his leg. Was Roy Williams tackled him the same way?
Tackle him the same way.
Yeah.
And then the independent doctors say 25 times higher instance of injury. All right.
Okay.
So if that's all true, then
that's potentially a dangerous play or is a more dangerous play. But at the same time, what are you expecting the defenders to do? So you
Yeah.
can't hit with the head anymore. All right, take that out of the game. That's that's fine. CTE is a thing.
Yes.
Uh, you can't horse collar tackle outside the tackle box. You're not allowed to do that. All
Mhm.
right. And I read one quote from a GM or from a league official who said the hip drop tackle is the the ugly cousin of the horse collar, and that's how they want to treat it
Mm,
because you're kind of locking on and then dragging down and then rolling over. But the problem is this: how many ways are there to tackle a guy
yeah.
without using your body weight to tackle him? So unless you're running full speed at him with a perfect form tackle now, that's not going to work. That you can't do that every time. So when you're arm tackling someone, for instance, you get a hold of them. Okay, now you're going to try to secure the second arm or whatever, and then you're going to try to twist and wrap down. Like there's just not much you can do. I don't. I I hope this doesn't get passed. Not because I'm anti-player safety. I want players to be safe and to keep playing because I want the best players to always play. But at the same time, how much scoring does the game need? And in my opinion, all of these things, with the exception of the helmet to helmet stuff, because the Will Smith movie came out and the
Yeah.
NFL got all pissy about it.
Tell
With
the
the
truth.
tell the truth, yeah, tape, needles, Toradol,
It's a good
tape.
that's a good Haberman and Middlecoff callback.
I love that when they tape
Toradol.
Toradol needles. That used to get me fired up. Um, but with the exception of stuff like that, I mean, how many points does the NFL need in their games, and do they need scoring to go up? Because to me, it's just I maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's like so thinly veiled. I don't think this has anything to do with player safety. I think it's everything with them to be like, well, we should handicap the defense in another way now. Let's put another shackle on them to make it even harder to defend. And Derek, I'll ask you this: so you can't hit guys running over the middle anymore. You can't. There's no body bag throws now because you can't make people pay.
Yeah.
You can't horse collar. I get that. But inside the tackle box, you can horse collar. That's fine. If a guy's inside the tackle box, you can horse collar all day,
Mhm.
according to the rules. So with this hip drop tackle, is it going to be the same thing? You can hip drop tackle inside the tackle box. God forbid it's a quarterback, though, because then you're probably thrown out of the league.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to regulate this. I just think that yes, this rule will be passed. It sounds like,
Yeah.
um, but I don't know how you officiate that. Like it's another thing where players going to have to adjust their game, and I think it's incredibly difficult for defenders to do that. Like I remember when I was in high school, 2005, 2006, a lot of emphasis was driving guys into the ground or
Mm-hmm.
hitting the head of guys. And remember, who was it? Was it Matthias Kiwanuka that just stopped on a play against Vince Young?
Yeah.
And now that's how I feel like guys are going to be, where it's just like you got a guy wrapped up. You can't get him to the ground. So then you're going to have to bring back within the grasp. Like
Yeah.
how are guy like you watch 90s football, a lot of stuff is within the grasp. Like they would blow the whistle early and quarterbacks would get so pissed. But that, if a defensive player got their, full width, both their arms
They
on a
blow it.
quarterback
Yeah.
and held them for a second or two, that was a sack. And now we have elusive quarterbacks that are going to get out of those situations. So that's not fair. But it's also not fair to the defenders to put them in a spot where they have to think before they tackle. They should just make a play. And I know that's going to lead to a lot of guys, that's what happened to Mark Andrews, and people's legs get cut underneath. But that's football. Like, I'm sorry, but like, these guys know what they're getting into. And yes, they had to do something to help with concussions for people later on in life. But I think this is going overboard. I think
Yeah.
this is basically, we don't want to see fantasy players miss time during the regular season. So we want them to play, and we're going to have to hinder the defense in order to do that.
Well, yeah, and that's probably that's my biggest issue with this is that it doesn't. Maybe it does, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but it doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of player safety or any of that. It's coming from there's an ulterior motive of like what you just said. Oh, our fantasy players got to be in the game. Can't have Mark Andrews get injured. But like you said, Derek, it's football. And as far as a defender goes, you're right. They shouldn't have to go through a math equation before they're going to make a tackle. They should just be able to read and react and make the play. Likewise, with this kind of tackle, I just can't think of too many ways now where a player who is trying to make a tackle, especially against, say, a running back or someone with the ball who's got all this momentum going one way, if you can't use your own body weight to try and somehow wrap them and twist them to the ground, how else are you going to do? You're just going to stand there and get trucked all day? Like, because that's what could happen. And, you know, there's not too much of an emphasis. I know they try to say, oh, running backs or people with the ball can't just lower their shoulder or their heads and then get through a tackle. But how often does that actually get called? I can think of one time.
They don't call it.
They don't. The one time
it's
I can think of it.
It's a fine now.
Yeah. It's a fine now. So I saw it get.
No, but it should be like remember that was going to be the emphasis during one preseason game or one preseason year. They were talking about how they're going to emphasize running backs lowering their head. I don't see that at all.
I think I saw one penalty for it in the last couple of years, and it was the Raiders were playing the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta, and Josh Jacobs just annihilated some guy. Yeah. That guy went flying. And they were like, nope, that's nope, not allowed to do that. And it's like,
because it was aggressive.
Because it was aggressive. Yeah, because he was too aggro. And it's just very I don't know. I don't know what a defender's supposed to do. I guess we're gonna see. What's interesting, you ever look at how guys like Jadeveon Clowney or the Bosas or Khalil Mack, the way a lot of the elite defensive ends, Max Crosby, the way they tackle, they like put the hurt on you with their arms when they wrap you up.
The wingspan,
they like slam you. So maybe we'll see more of that where it's just really violent body tackles where, you know, guys' arms are flying and trying to lay the wood on someone in that sense. But how well is that going to work out when you're a corner or a safety and you're having to tackle a tight end?
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. They'll figure out a way to make it work because they always do. But eventually it's going to turn into two-hand touch. And I'm not going to watch anymore and there's a lot of people like that. Like, do I love football? Of course I do. Do I love the rule set and the way the game is designed? Of course. But there's also an element of violence to the game that makes it very entertaining.
Yeah. No, I agree. I know a lot of fans that are turned off by the style of play these days, and this will add to it. But at the end of the day, it's still football. I will always watch.
Yeah.
But if it becomes a watered down product where defense is not allowed to do their business, then you're going to have a lot of guys not want to play football. So we'll see what happens. I do think this rule will be passed, and I think it's going to be unfortunate for the game. And I don't know how they're going to regulate it. I don't know how you can tell a defender not to do that. Bodies are weird. We're not all coordinated human beings. It's difficult to find you lose your balance. It's just stupid. And that's just the bottom line. It's stupid.
Especially in football with all the momentum going one way and then bodies twisting another way, things like that. But then lastly, with the officials, you're going to put the onus on the officials to be that. I mean, I know they're tuned in, right? But like to diagnose exactly what's happening every single tackle, besides a face mask, besides a horse collar, besides all the other things they got to keep track of. Now they got to see, oh, did this guy kind of drag him down and then fall? I mean, it's going to be one of those judgment things. And it's going to be a 15-yard penalty. This could sway the outcome of a ton of games.
Yeah. Nope, we will be checking for that come this upcoming week if the drop hip tackle is taken out of the game. We'll also be paying attention to the Warriors who play later today against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Big game for both teams.
Yeah,
Minnesota trying to keep atop the Western Conference, and the Warriors just trying to stay afloat with the play-in teams. And the Rockets have won 8 games in a row and are a game and a half behind the Warriors. Warriors cannot fuck around anymore, but we'll see if they even make the playoffs or play-in. Do you have a quick opinion on the Warriors real quick, Alon?
I do. I'm glad you brought them up. So a couple weeks ago, the last time I was on, the Warriors were kind of hot off the heels of that really good month of February. And Now they've definitely slid a bit, and I'm not talking about like just the loss to the Spurs. It was like, okay, that was tough. They beat the Bucks, and then they lost that close game to the Bulls, and then lost to the Spurs, whatever. But then they came back and beat the Spurs, and it was like, oh, everything's hunky dory again. They're going to go on a little run. They lose to the Mavs, they beat the Lakers. But the one that sticks out to me, man, is they, they lose to the Knicks and the Pacers, and the losses. It's not just any individual loss. It's just the losses are starting to stack up again,
Yeah.
and they can't they can't seem to sustain anything. That's their issue.
Yeah.
They might go on a run either during a game or during a week or even during a month, but they can't sustain. And to me, it's the team being older is definitely one part of it. The team not being the most effective defensive team is the biggest part of it, but I just don't get it. They're just so hot and cold, and I can see it because you can see the flashes of them being able to put it together, and it's like, oh, this is like 2 years ago, right, or 2.5 years ago now. And then all of a sudden they have a clunker, and you're just like, they can't defend, they can't rebound, they turn the ball over like crazy, and you're just scraping to get into the play-in. So at this rate, if the Rockets continue the way they're trending, and I know there's only 12 games left, I think, for the Warriors at least. So the way they're trending, and if the Warriors if they trend that way, and the Warriors only play 500 ball the rest of the way, the Warriors will not be in the playoffs.
We'll see. I mean, I think that they'll stay alive and just manage to be the 10th seed, but that's what they are. They're just a 10th seed in the Western Conference play-in, and I will be all excited for a play-in game against the Lakers if that's what happens. But I've sounded like a broken record this whole Warriors season. They're just not as good as they used to be, and
It's hard.
yeah, the people get older. I'm tired of the mentality of, well, if they just get in, they get in, and they could just be a championship team. I don't see that anymore. I don't think this team's capable of that. I think they're gonna have to make massive changes come the offseason. So whatever happens, cool. I honestly, I'm watching, but I'm not expecting much. I want them to make the play-in, at least. If they lose to the Lakers, they'll suck. But yeah, I don't have any high expectations for them the rest of the way.
I mean, so you look at the schedule. The nice thing is they do get to play the Rockets, which is big because they will get to, if they win, get a game on them. They get the Jazz twice, and the last game of the season is against the Jazz. So, you would, in days past, you'd say that's a win, but we don't know it.
This road trip coming up is brutal. They got the Timberwolves are a really good team. And they're playing all the Texas teams. They got to go to Florida for a little while. Magic are good now. They play the Heat. They could lose. They could lose a lot of games here. But yeah, it's going to be tricky. Well, we'll see if they make the play-in. I don't think it's a guaranteed thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they got 6 road games out of their next 7, and if they don't win 5 of the next 7 games, there's a real possibility that they are not in the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, like I said, I don't have high expectations. I like them to get in to the play-in, but I don't. I mean, like I said before, if it's just a fight to get to play the Nuggets in the first round, then they're not winning that series either.
Do you think that? No, and I agree with that. They haven't shown that they can beat the Nuggets this year. They've been to the wire with them one time, and I think Nikola Jokic broke their hearts.
Miracle shot.
Miracle shot. I remember that game. But the thing is this. I was going to ask this, Derek. Do you think that if the play-in thing wasn't a thing, and this team was at the same stage age-wise, and at the very end, dynasty's over right now, as far as we're concerned. Do you think there would be more intensity to get a playoff spot, or do you think they'd be in the same exact spot they'd be in? They'd be the 10th seed right now.
If there was no play-in?
If there was no play-in, it had to be the 8th seed.
I mean,
I
think it'd be too late at this point. I don't think there's any ground to gain, and I think that to be a 8th seed at this point, no. I mean,
I'm not saying to be the 8th seed I mean the whole season, right? I'm saying, do you think the whole season would have changed had the play-in not been a thing? Because I tend to think that for an older team that and for a fan base that goes, well, just get in the play-in and then we can make some things happen.
Well, that's the thing, though.
I almost wonder if the team looks at it that way sometimes.
I hope not, but I think that I think they definitely have a lackadaisical attitude towards the regular season with how much they've played in the playoffs and how much games they've played and the tolls on their bodies. But at the same time, the Warriors don't play for the play-in. So they played hard last year to get that 6th seed and avoid the play-in.
Mhm.
No, I think that I think legitimately they just don't. They're not a good team. They're not as good as they used to be.
And Steve Kerr has done everything seemingly in his power to try to get them to a point where they can even be talked about as a play-in team.
Exactly.
With his coaching, with his moves with Klay Thompson, with trying to get Pajitsky and Kuminga more involved, things like that. I mean, all these things he's tried to work around, and this is the best that they can be so far.
Yep. And yeah, it's I mean, it's pretty telling with the fact that, you know, the West is loaded, and that's the biggest problem is this whole thing is you're going to have two teams that are well below 500 make the play-in for the East, while the Warriors are barely above 500, and yet they'll be the 10th seed. It's tough. They're in the much harder conference. All right, Alon. Well, thank you for thank you for filling in today, man. Always appreciate it. I'm assuming we're gonna do it a lot more with Steven getting ready to be married this year. So thank you and appreciate you always jumping on.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Sorry, that was a weird. I know it was a weird,
Yeah.
awkward, weird ending point.
I was like, okay. But yeah, no, I always love being here. I always love seeing everybody in the chat and obviously tuning in when I'm not on. So it's always fun. Love this podcast.
Thank you, man. Well, we appreciate you, and thanks to everybody tuning in today. Ernie's, Tacky was in the chat. That son of a bitch, and JD.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Shout out JD. Shout out Tacky
and AJ Cruz.
What is and AJ Cruz and the Ernies? What is the rivalry here between Derek and Tacky? Because I kind of feel like I came in late to the party with it the other day. I just see Tacky in here. Eat shit, Derek. Derek, you're an idiot. Yeah, all this stuff.
Tacky is on the KMBR thread, part of the live stream for our YouTube. And he's funny in that. And the recurring thing on the Tolbert and Cope show is whenever I mess up, we play the drop from Step Brothers where Will Ferrell screams out, "Eat shit, Derek."
Yes.
So that's a recurring drop on the show, and Tacky just likes to come in and tell me that.
Oh, okay. So he's
I have
funny.
nothing against Tacky. He just likes to fuck with me and say that every time.
He's funny there, and he's very funny here.
Yeah, he thinks he's funny. By the way, real quick, this just came out from Alden Gonzalez, who covers the Dodgers. The Dodgers are back in Los Angeles. Dave Roberts will address the media momentarily. So we'll see what's said there. Shohei Ohtani will speak tomorrow.
Dave Roberts is going to get up there and go, "No one's gambling, guys. There's no gambling going on. Nothing to see here. We're back to baseball."
Yeah, we'll see how much he can avoid that. The interesting thing will be Ohtani speaking tomorrow.
Without an interpreter.
Well, I'm assuming he'll have an interpreter. He's got to have somebody.
We got Jason Bateman.
Exactly, Jason Bateman. Thanks to everybody. We'll be back, I believe, on Wednesday. I'll reach out to Steven and see if we're all good for Wednesday for a good old baseball preview. So thanks to everybody. Alon, thanks to you as always, man. And say what you always say when you fill in.
It's just your opinion, man.